What up, guys? Your boy Quake, and more stuff is happening when it comes to this T.I. versus 50 Cent battle, and it's really gotten even crazier as time has gone on. But I want to go over the last 24 hours of events that happened. So for those that are unaware, T.I. and 50 have had a back and forth online because of the versus battle. T.I. called 50 out and said, hey, let's do a versus. 50 said, hey, I don't want to do it. Basically, that happened in 2020 to 2021. People moved on. Then in 2026, T.I. called 50 out again. And this time, T.I. actually said in an interview with $1 Million Worth of Game that he doesn't respect 50 Cent's character and that he doesn't respect him at all and doesn't want to share the same stage as him, and that 50 Cent backed out of the verses, that behind the scenes he said he would do it, but in the public he doesn't want to do it, which then prompted 50 to go, and disrespect T.I.'s wife. And then his son, King, decided to go at 50, disrespect him and disrespect his mom that's, dead, and so on and so forth. They've been going back and forth for a while now. But the last 24 hours is interesting because 50 ended up deleting all of his posts that went, at, T.I.'s wife and, anybody else that he was, throwing shots at, which was Beyonce's mom, who was uplifting T.I.'s wife and saying she's beautiful and so on and so forth. Basically, more people were getting involved, and 50 was just basically disrespecting everybody that was getting involved. And then he cleared his Instagram page. And people were like, he basically waved the white flag and moved on. But what happened is T.I. decided to apply more pressure and released a second, or you can say third, depends on if you count the first quote-unquote diss track War as an actual diss track, but I don't. So it's the second diss track, and this one's called What Bully. And in this track, he's just, again, going at him, basically saying, you're a bully, but now that we're bullying you, you don't want to be bullied. That's basically the gist of the diss track. And after that diss track, T.I. said doesn't matter if you delete posts or not, I'm going to still go after you. And from there, T.I.'s own son, King, decided to drop a diss track as well. And he's been going in on 50 by posting old photos of 50, old, questionable photos of him doing weird stuff and just things that just to troll, online. After that, though, people were like, is 50 going to say something? He ended up posting a photo. And in the photo, he said in the caption, to entertain is to provoke emotions, love me or hate me. It's cool, just care enough to feel some kind of way. Tomorrow's going to be a slow news day, or y'all can just make some stuff up. LOL. Which a lot of people took as hey, I'm waving the white flag. I'm just kind of moving on from the situation, right? And, what he said in that caption is basically hey, if it wasn't for me, things wouldn't be entertaining, whether you love me or hate me. At least I'm, in the news cycle always. And he is, to his credit. That's very true. And then after that post, he posted a photo of himself boarding a private jet. And he said, I'm out of here. You guys hurt my feelings. People were wondering, what's going on? Is he trolling? Does he actually have his feelings hurt? And then after this, and I was seeing this live as it was happening because I was trying to keep up with the posts because we post a lot of this stuff on our Facebook page. So I was seeing this live and I was like, okay, it looks like 50 kind of gave up and just, moving on from the situation, right? Well, after he posted that, literally 2 to 3 minutes later, he posted a not so flattering photo of T.I.'s wife again. In the caption, he said, okay, I changed my mind. And then from there, he posted probably 10, 15 minutes later, he addressed why he isn't going in the booth and responding to T.I. or even Fabulous or Jim Jones or, all the people that dissed him basically these past 2 to 3 months. And what he says is very interesting, and that's what I really want to talk about in this video because a lot of people want 50 to go back in the booth, including me. I'm a huge fan of 50. I love his music. That's how, I ended up becoming a fan of him. So I get where people are coming from with the verses and with 50 getting back in the booth and making music. I totally understand and I agree with it. I really want that to happen. But what 50 says in this caption clearly states what is the kind of playing field here. So let's go over the post. And he actually deleted the T.I., T.I.'s wife, that photo, this recent one that he just posted. He deleted that and he deleted this photo with addressing why he's not recording. So he posted an award and it says the stupid blank blank award. So you can use your imagination, you know exactly what it's saying. And in the caption, he said, this award goes to old rappers still trying to battle rap. ChatGPT told me that. I don't need me to rap. You need me to rap. LOL. Get the F off my page. What's interesting about this is as much as people don't like that 50's not going in the booth and not, battle rapping, he's right. And I'm going to break down why he's right. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, Quake, oh, you're just siding with him because of this, that. Let me kind of put it in perspective because I think it's when you understand the perspective, it kind of makes sense. Do I like that response? No. I'm with you guys with him rapping and all that. I'm with you guys. I would love to get a new 50 album, love to get new freestyles, would love to live in 2005 again and get that type of vibe and energy that 50 was on back then. I'm with you guys. I'm not against it. And T.I., God bless his soul. He's in the studio cooking it, killing it. The first diss track is fire. The second one's all right. But let me kind of break down why this doesn't really make sense, right? And why this is something that's like should be viewed in a whole different lens. The first thing we need to look at is where these people are in their careers, right? 50 essentially gave up music in 2015. The last major studio album he released, which actually wasn't a major because it wasn't released on a major label, but it was released under his label, G-Unit Records, and distributed through Caroline Records, was Animal Ambition in 2014. He dropped that in June 2014. It did like 50,000 copies first week. Total, it's done like 400,000, by now at least. Back then, it was like 120,000 in that year, but by now we can assume 200, 300,000 copies, right? No major label push, just independent dropped it. That was the last time he actually dropped a full project. He did drop a mixtape at the end of 2015 called the Kanan Tape, which is a play on the Stars show and stuff like that. And then from the following years after that, he's dropped like theme singles, like songs for TV shows, which is part of the game, which is that Power Raising Kanan show. He dropped Money, Powder, Respect with Jeremiah and Lil Durk for the other Power show with Tommy. Like he dropped records for his TV shows. That's it. And then he does features here and there with like worldwide artists because they probably pay him a shit ton of money to do that. So that's what 50's done since 2015. Just dropped theme songs and done some features here and there. Now we look at T.I. Let's go to T.I.'s career. The last time he dropped an album was that Libra album in 2020. So right now we're talking about a 6-year gap that T.I. and 50. So T.I. dropped an album in 2020. Now he's gearing up to drop another album, his final album in 2026. That's a 6-year gap that T.I. was quote unquote retired, right? So 50, we can make a clear distinction, is way further removed from music than T.I. is, as well as Jim Jones, as well as Fabulous, as well as Mano, as well as Dave East. Fabulous, I think the last time he dropped an album, let me actually see, because I want to get these timelines to kind of just paint this picture right. Fabulous, the last time, because mainly people want him to respond to Fabulous, because Fabulous is the one that cooked him in that freestyle, right? So the last time Fabulous dropped a studio album was 2019, right? So he's about 7 years removed from music. T.I.'s about 6 years. 50's about, what, you want to say 12 years? So a lot further, right? And 50 doesn't really do as much features, isn't really on music that much, So these guys are pretty much out of music. Jim Jones is the most recent. Dave East is the most recent. And who else was on there? Mano. Last time Mano dropped was in 2022, the Lotto Boys mixtape. So he hasn't dropped any studio albums because he's just not in the Lobby Boys. Sorry, not the Lotto Boys, with Jim Jones. So there you go, 2022. So Mano, Dave East, Jim Jones are a lot more active. T.I., Fabulous are about 6-7 years removed from dropping a project, and 50 Cent is about 12 years removed from dropping a project, right? So that's the timeline. Now, think about this in these last 10 to 12 years. Let's just start from 2014 when 50 kind of bowed out of music, dropped his last studio album, and was done. From 2014 to 2026, what has Fabulous, what has Dave East, what has Mano, what has Jim Jones, and what has T.I. done in those years? Now, the reason why I'm mentioning this is because the great artists who maximize their careers saw that, hey, I have a peak, and eventually I'm gonna fall from that peak. And when I fall from that peak, I need to figure out something else to do. It's the same thing with athletes, where they're at their peak. Let's say basketball, right? You're at a certain peak. You have like an 8 to 10 year window. After that, you start to decline, and eventually you become, a bench player or whatever, or you just end up bowing out because your body can't handle it, right? So the same thing happens to any career, where you have this peak and then you eventually start to fall off, like J. Cole's album, The Fall Off. That happens eventually, right? 50 in his peak, you can say from 2003 to 2007. Let's just say it's that 5-year gap. He maximized everything. He dissed everybody. He went at everybody that he could go at. Literally, I don't think he ducked any smoke that I can remember. I know somebody's going to comment, oh, Quake, but, for the most part, 90% of the time he didn't duck smoke. Piggy Bank, he's literally dissing 7 people, but that's a different conversation. So 50 maximized his music career, realized that by 2007, after the Kanye battle, 2008, 2009, Before I Self-Destruct did decent. It didn't do bad, but it didn't do that good either. He kind of was starting to decline, and he was like, okay, let me shift my career to movies and television. This was in 2009, 2010, right after his fourth studio album, Before I Self-Destruct. So he was ahead of him falling off. As he was starting to fall off, he already started to go a different path. Now let's compare T.I. So T.I. has a great run in career. So Paperwork is the album where he started to fall off. Not fall off, but this is the last like big album that he had. He had No Mediocre, which was a hit, and then About the Money with Young Thug, which was a hit. So then you have his Dime Trap album that came out in 2018. This didn't really perform that well. It debuted at number 13 on the charts, and only did 32,000 copies first week, which is a huge drop from go to the Paperwork album, which came out in 2014. Look at the first week sales on this one. This one debuted at number 2 and did 80,000 first week. So that's about, you want to say about 60 to 70% drop in sales first week, and then just overall. And then he dropped his last album in 2020, which debuted at number 18 and only did 23,000 first week. And we don't even have any sales numbers on it. So terrible numbers, from 2018 to 2020. But by this time, T.I. hadn't transitioned to anything else. He just started to fall off. And when he wanted to transition, it was too late. Think about this. 50's already transitioned to TV and television right as he knew, like as he dropped Animal Ambition, last album, he was dropping that same week he dropped his Power TV show, which became a huge success. And he was doing all kinds of TV stuff, right? So as 50's knowing that he's falling off music, he's already getting to a different career. He's already gone. He's gone from music. He's doing TV and television. Right as he knows he timed it perfectly and got the fuck up out of music. These other guys are still stuck in music, and they stayed in it so long that they're like, shit, like I'm not selling records anymore. What can I do to help this situation? And what they do is they then cling on to other things. And here's the ironically funny part, is 50 was helping T.I. to transition to television. T.I. said it himself. 50 and T.I. in May of 2020 were going to pitch TV shows in L.A. 50 was helping him. 50 was with him because 50 already had that history with Power TV show being successful, For Life, all these other TV shows and movies that he's doing, Den of Thieves that he was doing. He already had that feel, that momentum in the TV world. So he was bringing on T.I. to help him on that, right? Because T.I. hadn't pivoted, which is crazy because T.I. had some successful movies himself. He should have pivoted like after like 2013, he should have been starting to pivot. But T.I. didn't pivot properly. Then he tries to go to comedy and fails. And then what does he do after that? After he's like, oh shit, I failed on TV. I can't pitch TV shows. It's not going well. I tried to do the comedy route. It's not going well. Well, I got to go back to music because that's the only area that he can go in where he can potentially do well. And here we are. T.I. dropping his final album, Kill the King, pushing all the single, doing well, and he's doing pretty good. And I doubt it's going to be his final album. If this album does well, he's going to drop another one because he doesn't have anything else that he's pivoted to. He doesn't have a big business investment, anything big at all. So what 50 said is, in the caption, he's saying, hey, like, you guys need me to rap, but I don't have to rap. I don't have to do this. I do this for fun. And a lot of rappers are in that position that were smart in their careers. Look at Nas. Nas invested in Amazon, Coinbase, all these big companies, Ring, all this stuff made millions upon hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, he's just dropping music because he wants to. He doesn't care about the sales. He just wants to do it at his own leisure, his own time. Look at Jay-Z. Hasn't dropped an album since 2017 because he doesn't have to. He's already pivoted in his career. He's already making billions and hundreds of millions of dollars elsewhere. The only artists that want to be in the studio and that they have to be there. They have to. That's the only thing they got. What has Jim Jones done since he's had his hit record and has had some type of momentum? He's not doing anywhere else. You can't name a single thing. Now he's starting to do the podcast. Now he's starting to build a studio. Finally, you're joining this like very late. See, here's another good example. Joe Budden got into this early, pivoted early, because he was like, listen, the music industry's starting to go away. Streaming ain't as good as album sales. My career musically wasn't really that hot anyway, so let me pivot. And now he's found way more success in podcasts than he ever did in music. with all this, what I'm trying to say is these guys that were wanting 50 to go back in the studio and the people that are wanting 50 to go back in the studio need to think that, like, hey, 50's pivoted. He's so successful in something else. This is like asking, here's an example, right? Gordon Ramsay, one of the best chefs in the world, one of the most world-renowned, most famous. That's like asking him to go back and be a line cook because some line cook called him out as not a good chef. Like, at what point does that doesn't make any sense? It doesn't make sense at all. Why would you want somebody to go back to doing something that they've already moved on from and succeeded from? If 50 was releasing music and albums, like, let's just say you released an album in 2020 or 2022, then I would have been like, yeah, 50, you're still active musically. Like, get your ass back in the studio, stop ducking the smoke. But this is a guy who hasn't released an album since 2014. People have this mindset of like, and this is why a lot of people fail in life in general, is people get stuck in their old ways and they don't adapt and move on and change. You have to adapt, move on, and change. And 50's done that. And people are just mad that everything is working when it comes to 50. Think about these last 3 months. Who was the hottest topic of conversation these last 3 months in hip hop? It's clearly, by a long shot, I can't even think of anybody these last 3 months who's had his name in headlines every single day. Ever since the Diddy documentary dropped, the Netflix one, that 50 dropped, ever since then, every single day or every single other day or every week, 50's been in a conversation, whether it's the Jim Jones thing, getting evicted, or the Let's Rap About It podcast, him revealing that they owe money. Now it's with this T.I. thing, the Diddy Netflix documentary. Like, the memes and the stuff, it just works to his benefit, his advantage. And it pisses people off that it does that. That's why people get mad. Like, you're a loser, take your L, get in the studio. And I'm not trying to defend 50, like, be like, oh, but I get where 50's coming from. He's moved on. He's pivoted. He has success in other things. T.I. doesn't. What does T.I. have outside of music right now? You could point to back in the, like I said, the mid-2000s or the mid-2010s, he had the T.I. and Tiny show. That was doing well. He should have pivoted then, but he never adapted, never adjusted. So now he's stuck. And I'm not saying this to say that T.I. is broke. That's not what I'm saying. There's no correlation between the two. He could be making money behind the scenes. We just have no idea about it, right? But if you look at it from the public eye, all T.I.'s got is music right now. There's nothing else. In fact, think about the last time T.I. has toured. I actually looked this up. The last time he did a headlining tour where he was the headline was in 2017. And it was only 32 cities in America. That's it. 50's last tour, the final lap in 2023, was 103 cities around the world. Not just America. He did all of America, but he did the rest of the world, 103 locations, and made $105 million. So there's like levels to this. 50 doesn't need to make new music, doesn't need to at all. He's living off of his old catalog because his old catalog is still doing well. And you know what people are going to say? They're going to comment on this and be like, it's not about the numbers. We just want a verses. I get where you guys are coming from, but you got to look at it from the perspective of why would 50 do it? Why would he waste his time? He's succeeding in film and television. That's like me asking you right now, let's just say you're the CEO of a company, to tell you to take time out of your busy ass day of what you're doing succeeding as a CEO of a company to go and be, I don't know, a line cook or do something that's you've already graduated from, you've moved on. It just doesn't make any sense. But people won't, no matter what, people's hate for 50 is just doesn't matter. You can say whatever and people will just be like, oh, you're this, you're that, you're just trying to make excuses. I've always heard millions, but people won't come with facts. Like, come with the facts of what has T.I. done in the last 10 years in his career. Even musically. No headlining tours. Last time he had a hit was No Mediocre in 2014. So if we're talking about hits, like 50 had I'm the Man. Without, talking numbers and stuff, I get it. People have their opinions on catalogs, and I'm not disrespecting T.I.'s catalog. I think he has one of the 3 best album runs in music history with King, T.I. vs. T.I.P., and Paper Trail. The back-to-back-to-back years. I love T.I.'s catalog. I hate that I even have to go against T.I. because I'm a fan of T.I. I have it on my phone. I can prove it. I have records that people don't even have on streaming services on my phone from T.I. But you got to look at it from each person's perspective. I get where T.I. is coming from, but he needs to battle Ludacris, battle Jeezy, battle somebody that's more of your level. 50's at a different tier in his career, musically and just overall in his career. So that's the kind of, what I wanted to break down. I think people are not really looking at it from that perspective. But regardless of me saying this, there's going to be people that comment and just say, hey, you're making excuses, this and that, because people just don't like 50 for whatever reason. I think they get mad that his antics actually work for him. And they do. That's his brand. Trolling and, causing chaos is his brand, and it's always worked. And it entertains people, and people just, the people that hate it, it just gives more motivation. Like the more you hate something, the more interactions he gets. The more you love it, so on and so forth. Anyways, I'm not going to go on this whole rampage, keep talking about this stuff, but I just wanted kind of to break down why 50 is not getting the booth. He's right. He doesn't need to rap. You guys need, the rappers that trying to revive their careers need him to rap. 50 doesn't have to rap. It's an option. Just like Jay-Z, who a lot of people defend, it's an option for Jay-Z. If right now somebody called out Jay-Z, it's an option. That's what happens when you put yourself in a great position in your career. You can do whatever you want. You have options. You're that successful versus those other guys who are stuck in music still and have to release music to remain relevant. But that's my take on it. Let me know what you guys think.